dispatcher who passed away this weekend?
A week ago.
A week ago.
A week ago today.
And Vince Cox is going to do a little.
Yeah, I'm just going to
Say a
mention,
little
y'all,
something.
that we have, he was a former colleague of mine, and his name is Santiago Aguilar, and he was a victim of a car accident where a car went airborne, had lost control and hit his car, and it killed Santiago instantly. Santiago was 29 years old. His fiancée was with him. She survived mostly unscathed, and they have 3 children as well. So let's keep Santiago in our thoughts and our prayers. He was a driver when I knew him. He was a dispatcher at First Transit, our paratransit provider now. So thank you all.
Thank you, Vince. And I'd like Commissioner Schulman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I apologize, that wasn't much of a moment of silence.
No.
But we are thinking of both of them. Okay, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves as the board members. And we'll start with Gina.
Good morning, everyone. Gina Driscoll, St. Petersburg City Council Vice Chair and Vice Chair of the PSTA Board.
Vince Cox, Pinellas County.
David Albritton, Clearwater City Council.
Commissioner for the great city of Dunedin.
Good morning, Renee Flowers, Pinellas County Commissioner, District 7, also newly elected Secretary Treasurer for T-BARTA.
Kathleen Peters, Pinellas County.
Mr. Bennett?
Richard Bennett, I'm a commissioner in North Fredericton Beach, and I represent the beach communities.
Josh Schulman, City of St. Petersburg.
Thank you. Do we have anybody online today? No?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. All right then. Okay, now's the time for public comment on consent agenda items or items not on the agenda. Due to the continuing pandemic, we have reintroduced the ability to provide public comment online, either in person or coming here to the PSTA lobby, or by telephoning by calling the number on the screen. Yes, 1-415-655-0022, 0002. Well, anyway, it's online. Are there any members in the public in the lobby that would like to speak this morning?
There's no one in the lobby for this public comment
Okay, thanks.
section.
Are there any speakers on the telephone?
There are speakers on the line right now, but I do not believe that any of them are wanting to speak about the consent agenda. Can we ask the public comment if anybody is here to speak on the items that our chair has listed for this time? Okay, so there's no public comment for these items at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, well, first up, we have a presentation about the SEIU contract. Mr. Bradford.
Good morning, Madam Chair. If it's easier for everyone to hear me, I'm fine removing the mask if everyone's comfortable. I will introduce the gentleman to my right here shortly. First and foremost, I would like to extend warm sympathies and prayers to the family and friends of City Manager Bill Horn and our PSA dispatcher Santiago Aguilar, both who were gone way too soon. Here this morning, and good morning to our chair, good morning Chief Miller, and to our wonderful board members. I'm James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer with PSTA, and joining me to my right, I am pleased to present to you our SEIU Union Board. We have our SEIU President, Kevin Sablon. We have our SEIU Vice President, Paul Kirkland. We have our SEIU reps and senior veteran reps, Marcus Kincaid and Ken Elliott. And I can tell you, in 10 years of working, particularly with these four, it's been quite a journey. They do help me make sure the PSA ensures that I earn my paycheck. But we've had some great conversations, and we've gotten to the heart of a lot of, we've come to a lot of resolutions over the years. So I'm just proud to actually stand with these gentlemen here today. So, a celebration of sorts. In addition to me being born 45 years ago today, August 18th, 1976, welcome to America. Thank you, Cars, Irma Jean Bradford, and Valrico, Florida. We are pleased. I love coming before you on this item because it means we have successfully reached agreement on another 3-year contract for wages and working conditions. Not always an easy thing to do. If you've heard tales of unions and management across the states, a lot of times these don't get done. They'll sit idle for a few years, and the employees don't get the increases they need, and management doesn't get to tweak some of the work policies. But we've done it well for nearly a decade, at least since I've been here. We've been able to come to the table, negotiate responsibly, disagree what we're going to disagree upon, but finally agree, and then hopefully bring before you all a deal that you all will also approve. In your board packets, you should have the red line version of the contract that is marked up. Also, you will see the nice summary of what we've done over nearly 4 months of our tentative agreements as well in that packet. I did present this last week, this item, before the Finance Committee, who did unanimously approve it to go forward to all of you. So without further ado, let's go to the next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of background of who we are and what this even is, this is our 3-year union labor agreement contract. It spells out our working conditions, benefit use, and of course wages and what the wage increases could look like for the next 3 years for our bargaining members. And this group here represents our frontline unit. We say frontline, there are customer-facing folks at PSTA. It represents one of PSTA's 2 unions. It spans nearly 490 frontliners, 390 in transportation, 100 in maintenance. Transportation includes the bus operators and the customer service representatives, and maintenance includes our maintenance technicians, our facility crew that keeps our building and our asset amenities in good repair, and our service attendants that keep our vehicles fueled and cleaned up in the evening. We reached full tentative agreement, both sides, PSTA's negotiating team and SEIU Union's negotiating team, full tentative agreement on all outstanding issues and proposals on Wednesday, June 30th. Now, this crew right here, just a couple of weeks ago, the SEIU Union ratified their portion of this agreement with a vote of 216 to 78, nearly 74% of the folks who came out to vote on Tuesday, August 3rd. So they did the hard part, which is to go to all their members, say, we sat down with Bradford through all of his bloviating, and we believe we got you a fair deal, and they voted successfully. Now, your final approval today will represent the final step and full ratification of this contract. And again, this new 3-year wage increase and working conditions contract is within, and hopefully I've made Debbie Elias, our CFO, proud if she's listening, within PSTA's FY22 projected budget. Next slide, please. So I'll give you some details as I go through the slides. I do want to show you a couple of slides of actually the voting happening on the union side in progress here. So you can see happy, smiling faces. They had their ballot box through. This crew right here, and you'll see Marcus Kincaid and Paul Kirkland and Kevin Sablon in these pictures, sat through this all day long, early in the morning till the wee hours of the evening, taking the votes of over 300 PSTA members. And you can see them voting in the ballot box. The next slide will show you just a few more pictures of some of the various positions. You'll see someone from our maintenance department and our bus operators coming in to exercise their right to vote on this contract. Next slide, please. So our main focus during these negotiations were, of course, our fiscal sustainability on our side. So, of course, we want to, remain and keep the doors open and keep running full service 5, 10, 15 years from now. We do understand the importance of wage increases to try to be strategic in what we do so we can be sustainable in the future. Of course, SEI Union is going to come in and they're going to bring us the issues on behalf of their members. Any type of working conditions issue, any type of allowances they need, uniforms, tools, other working conditions, but of course wage increases, needing to have those livable wages to bring back to their members and something that they can hang their hat on as we see the cost of living go up each and every year and all the other living everyday expenses go up. This crew right here has a responsibility to come to the table and fight for their people and fight they did. Performance-driven, of course, we always look through the work policies, mandated safety practices, attendance requirements. Coming off of a pandemic, probably imagine there's new language in there about the requirement for face mask and safety, personal protective equipment, and those type of things. Next slide, please. So here's how it looked when we were at the tables. Now, of course, you always get both sides coming to the table with all kinds of proposals, hopes, and dreams. And usually what you end up with is both sides walk away from the table, leaving something on there that they didn't get, but finally reaching agreement in the middle on things that both sides can live with. These negotiations span 4 months, 9 sessions, which is kind of quick for us. But if you'll notice, a record high 170 proposals that we went through. And here's how here are the results. Wage increases for bus operators who maintained, kept the doors open, kept the buses running all throughout the pandemic. We never stopped service. FY22 through FY24, they will receive a 3.25% increase over the next 3 years, which will also keep them tops amongst Florida agencies, nearly 31 plus Florida transit agencies. They keep them tops and in good footing with how bus operators are being paid in the state of Florida and in the Southeast region altogether. Maintenance and customer service through the next 3 years have an average of a 3% increase. And the one thing we're proud of, and SEIU partnered with us on this, is our Ase Certification program, our incentives for our maintenance technicians. ASC stands for Automotive Service Excellence, and you can boost your pay if you're a technician 25 cents for every additional ASC earned, every additional ASC certification. So if you become a master of air conditioning or repowering systems or other things, it gives you a better resume, gives you more talent and skill, makes you more marketable. For us, we get a very talented technician on our way in Joe and Henry's dream of becoming a blue ribbon maintenance shop here at PSCA. Next slide, please. So here's the tail of the tape. I'll take you through the chart for the bus operator increases. When you see at the very top, it says 3.25, 3 times in a row. That is the wage increase for the top step only. So when you're a bargaining member, employee here at PSDA, whether you're in maintenance, you're a bus operator, customer service rep, you don't come in at the top rate. You earn a top rate progressively over 4.5 years right now as it stands. So if you look at that first column, in the light blue, it says step 1. So if you're a bus operator and you're hired at PSDA right now, after you get out of training, you're making $15 an hour those first 12 months. And then month number 13, you go to $15.50. Then you go to $16.25, so on and so forth, until after 55 months, now you're at the top rate that you can be in that classification, which currently is $25.03. Now, if you look at the yellow, that represents the new wage increase proposal that we have with this new contract agreement. So now what we've done to try to be competitive at $15 an hour, you have Amazon in our backyard hiring at $15, $16, $17. You have McDonald's that are saying we're going to hire you at $15. You have Pep Boys if you're maintenance and the Chevy and Ford auto dealerships. Oh, I can go and just be a mechanic there. How do we stand apart when we're trying to recruit and retain good, talented people? We're trying to keep PSDA being a choice employer here in Pinellas County. Now, I have sat all throughout the pandemic for the last 18 months on these weekly APTA calls. APTA is our American Public Transportation Association, and I've heard from transit agencies from New York City all the way to LA Metro, and we're all facing the same crisis right now which is a bus operator shortage. It's very hard to find, and if you don't have bus operators, you're gonna start missing routes, missing runs, complaints gonna go up, the reliability of the service, public's gonna lose faith and confidence, and it's just, it spirals from there. So we're also in that bus shortage, as is our fellow property Hart over there in Tampa, also facing a bus operator shortage. So we're hoping this can kind of help us boost our ability to really recruit and retain talent. So we're raising that new hire rate to $16 an hour, which is amongst the highest starting bus operator rate in the state of Florida amongst public transit agencies. And not only that, we're shortening the time it takes for you to get to that next increase by 6 months. Additionally, usually when we do these contracts, the lower steps are forgotten about. We always add on a 3% or better on the back end. And if you're wondering how many people are at the top rate at PSDA, nearly 2/3 or better of our employees are at that top step, meaning they went through those lower steps and made that lower money, but it did kind of incentivize them that they know at the end they're going to have this nice paycheck, this nice hourly rate. So in this contract, we also increased by $1 all those lower steps to help with the increased cost of living, to help make sure we have a livable wage out there. So you'll notice, if you look in the yellow, column 2, now you're going to get an increase at month 7, $16.50 instead of $15.50. And at month number 19, now, if you're a current employee, you're gonna get $17.25. It used to be, and if you're a current employee here, you wouldn't hit $17 until month 37. Now you're gonna hit better than 17 in month 19. I had a question from one of the commissioners of the Finance Committee about how that impacts the compression rate. I don't know that I answered it fully. We adjusted all of those steps but down by 6 months so that everybody benefits, so that no one's really catching up to anybody, because everybody is going to go down by 6 months and then be able to hit that higher step until you get to that top rate. And you'll see in the red there, with the 3.25% for the top rate bus operators, they will move to $25.84 from $25.03. Let's take a look at that next slide to see how we stack up against some of the other agencies. So again, as I mentioned, there are over 31 public transportation agencies in the state of Florida. We, with this new rate, will remain in the top 5 in terms of competitive bus operator wages. You can see some of those higher wages in some of your higher cost of living areas, your Fort Lauderdales, your Miami, your West Palm Beach. Hart, Tampa, just got a new deal done with the arrival of their new CEO, and they're at a rate of $25.99. For years, they were just always a few steps behind us in pay rate, but they were stuck at $22 for 3 years or better without getting a new contract done. So we're happy for them, but also, of course, don't think my group did not take notice of that when it came to the table and said, well, hey, James Bradford, let's look at what Hart's doing here. Come on, what do you have? So with this 3-year deal, though, we'll be over $27.50 by the time the contract is done. Now let's take a look at maintenance on that next slide, how they're stacking up. As you can see, they're in the top 6 of over 31 or more agencies in terms of top mechanic, top technician rate. Again, the same agencies are ahead of us: Fort Lauderdale, Miami, West Palm Beach, higher cost of living, Hart as well. But if you take into consideration, and if I'm a technician, if I take advantage of that Ase Certification program, and at 25 cents a certification for up to 8 certifications, and I can boost my salary by up to $2, I can get up to $32.42, and I can break the top 3 in the state in terms of technicians paid. So I think that's a win-win program. I don't want to take all away Henry's luster, because I know he's going to break that down a little bit more later. And next slide, please. So here are the contract highlights, and then I want to pass the microphone over to Kevin Sablon to say a few words. All in all, we're very pleased. We fight each other. We might disagree sometimes, but at the end of the day, we can shake each other's hands, give each other the hug, and look each other in the eye with respect when it's all said and done. For PSDA, of course, always looking at those increased work procedure controls. For SIU, you're getting the wage and allowance increases, your uniform allowances, your steel-toe shoes, your tool allowance. If you're technicians, we're giving you money to keep up your tools. I don't know if a lot of people know, but our technicians, when they come, you have to have your own tool set, and you bring in your own tool case, your own tool drawers, you store them here, but we give you money to increase that tool allotment each and every year. So every mechanic, every technician we have has their own set of tools to keep our more than 220 vehicle fleet in tip-top condition. Flexible vacation and sick time use. that the SEIU got for their members, being able to use their vacation a lot easier, a lot more accessible. It used to be you had to use it in 1 week increments. Now you can use it in daily increments. And also you can use your sick time as part of this contract. If you're not sick, but let's say you just need a personal day, you need a mental timeout, now we're allowing you to use more sick hours and convert that to a personal day, and then you can just take a leave of personal absence. And again, I think both PSCA and SEIU make out on the Ase Certification incentive pay. But all in all, it was a good time at the table. Kevin, would you like to say a few words kind of on the overall process?
Kevin Sablon, I'm the president of the bargaining unit SEIU here at the PSCA. I just want to say thank you, James, rest of the board. This is actually the third contract that I've actually had the pleasure of sitting in on and helping out with the negotiating. I can honestly say that I believe this is the best one. They've gotten better each time, and a lot of that's due to the relationships and the rapport that we have with management here. Just say thank you, and I'm glad we got this thing ratified and got it done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for those kind words. And we're going to get to the last slide here. I would, and I don't want to be, next slide, please, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but upon your final approval of this contract, we would like to invite you at the end of the board meeting out for an official signing and photo op. You may have seen the canopy and the high top tables outside, where we will officially put our signatures on this contract, and that will go in the final copy. So to recap, asking for your approval on this 3-year wage contract with wage increases that I presented before you. Again, this is for our non-supervisory union. This is the frontline union, one of PSA's 2 unions. Over 490 people will be impacted by this contract, bus operators, customer service representatives, and maintenance personnel. SEIU voted in favor of this already for their part of the ratification, 216 to 78. And again, we believe this is within PSCA's FY22 projected budget, and the board approval represents the final step in the ratification process. Standing by right now, that through the power of Zoom in the virtual world, we have Director of Human Resources Trish Collins, Director of Maintenance Henry Lacassing, and Director of Transportation Jeff Thompson, standing by to help me answer any questions you all may have, also with our Benefits Manager, Liz O'Hara, and I will stop it there.
Okay. I assume the Finance Committee saw this last week?
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to say about that?
I'll defer to the chair of the finance.
We heard the, mic turned on?
Oh, well, actually,
Yes, you are.
Okay, now I am.
yeah.
Thank you, James, and thank you, gentlemen, for your hard work on this. And we did review this in the Finance Committee last week. We voted unanimously to accept this proposal. And it seems fair, it seems forward, and it just seemed like the right thing to do. So there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers, I think you had your, oh, okay.
Increases as presented by our Chief Operating Officer and staff, and then a comment if someone seconds that. And then my comment is, I just want to say thank you, because during this time, it has been so stressful, and to see that our drivers have continued the service for the community, for people to be able to get to work, knowing that your drivers are putting yourselves at risk because of the simple potential for transference of persons getting on and off your buses and interacting with each other. So I just want to say thank you for continuing to work on this contract. Everybody could have said, it's COVID, we'll wait, you know, things like that. But instead, you chose to just forge ahead. I'm excited about the potential for the wage increase and for that gap. It's interesting because in the region, we're always chasing each other, you know, and so we're seeing who's going to get to the table first to get those things settled. So I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited about the ASC component piece. I know Pinellas Technical College has a wonderful program. They're constantly trying to churn out more drivers for you guys, but that ASC potential $2 increase for that additional learning, I think will go a long way as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for being at the table and for sticking to it. And I look forward to another wonderful 3 years.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation and for working so diligently to create a contract that, that everyone can be proud of. This is excellent. I was wondering about the Ase Certification Opportunities, because with 8 different certifications available, people can choose to go through this and ultimately make considerably more money. How many people choose that now? Is this extremely popular? Would you say almost everyone who's able to does it?
That's a great question. I think we're still educating staff of the benefits of it, and we've certainly seen people go through. I see Henry standing by. Henry, do you want to elaborate on what you're seeing in your shop?
Yes, excellent question. So we have a lot of interest in it. If I was to assign a percentage of our 48 technicians, I would say about 70%. 70% are in some area of training, studying for those certifications. They're not easy. They're not easy tests, and it's not something that you can just take a day and take all 8 tests, or even a week. I tried once and it didn't go very well. So it's a lengthy process, but if you come to work at PSTA and you start off as a level 1 technician, in about two or 3 years, you're gonna become a master transit bus technician. And once you pass all 8 of those certifications, that's what you are awarded. It's like the equivalent of a master's degree from a post-secondary college or institution for folks in the trade. So it's a nationally recognized program. It carries some weight, and I'm very proud that our technicians here want to undertake that journey to achieve those certifications. It really is something that a person can put in their back pocket and take wherever they want, be proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that we have that commitment to professional development. Is this, if someone chooses to train to take one of these tests for one of these certifications, is that paid time or is that something that they do on their own?
So there's 2 components to it. The studying is on the technician's own time. However, PSTA covers the cost of the textbooks, the study guides, the cost of the test. And as part of there's the second component of becoming ASE certified is satisfying the minimum required on-the-job training hours, which we do sponsor them in that program.
Great, thank you. It's wonderful to know that we have, that PSTA is providing so much support for people's continuing training and development. One more question. The final vote on this, it looks like it was 74% of the voting members voted for this contract. Is there any insight that you can provide to us regarding those who voted against it? Was it for a particular reason that we as a board or PSTA as an agency can help to address, to create, I mean, was it strictly about the pay, or was there something else that outside of the contract PSTA could do better to make sure that we have that satisfaction among all of the employees here?
Sure. You know, we see those same numbers, very similar every time we do the vote. And I'll let Kevin speak, or the union, if they have any insights on this. You know, we always have a contingent that no matter what, and these fine gentlemen will tell you, they're dubious, right? They're just, you could get more. They don't want to see that PSTA management has asked for anything. So it's, well, what are they trying, you know, is management trying to take more back? Are they trying to be more strict on us? So you always have a group of folks that I think, one is always going to challenge their own union. No, go back to the tables, go get more money. And some are just dubious as to any changes I think we put in there. And I think we try to work hard to be transparent. Anything that you all noticed on voting day that folks shared with you?
I think One of the biggest reasons that we saw the votes that were for a no, the complaints that I heard is they believe that they deserved more, especially after this last year that we've dealt with the pandemic, with COVID and everything. And another thing that people would like to see more in the contract would be more towards health insurance. With the rising costs and everything with health insurance, they wanted to see more in the contract as far as the increases, keeping the costs down on premiums and such. Those were the two biggest things that I heard from the people.
Yeah, that makes sense. And of course, right, the cost of healthcare is a problem that goes far beyond PSTA. But it's something that, of course, we can always look for ways to, help where we can. I do have one more question that just came up. As you mentioned healthcare, is there anything that you all could suggest to help us increase the number of drivers, technicians who get the COVID vaccine? Do you have any ideas or any suggestions on how we can increase vaccinations among our employees here?
Right now, what we've just tried to do is we've put up these new digital info screens over in the other building. We've been trying to educate folks as much as we can. Certainly we partnered up with community health centers of Pinellas. We brought the vaccine here, and we did a survey, and a lot of our employees said, hey, if you bring it here and I have to literally walk by the table on the way into work, I'm more likely to get it if you make it easy for me. So we think we had a huge success when we did that. Right now, we've tried to incentivize folks. You see a lot of employers incentivizing people with extra paid time off. We've tried that. That moved the needle a little bit. And then I think we've seen with this variant resurface a rise of folks here at PSTA who've gone out, and what we believe from the numbers and the information we have, it's been mainly with folks who were not vaccinated. So that information's gotten out there, and I've heard a lot of folks say, okay, well, now I'm going to get the vaccination. Now now it's more incentive. But I think, led by our Chief Miller here, we still meet Director of Human Resources, Trish Collins, to try to see what else are we not doing in terms of getting information out there and helping our folks, really move towards vaccination if they choose to do so. But I think right now we're probably 75% or better of the campus, and then I think we're starting to see, folks who didn't are really going out. So
Yeah.
It's a challenge, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. It's good
Thank
to know.
you.
It's good to know that the efforts and the tactics are working to help more people get vaccinated. And certainly if there's any feedback that the union can provide today or beyond to help us make sure that everyone is getting vaccinated, staying safe, we are certainly open to that.
Yeah.
That's
I
all
would like to say to James Arthur Bradford Sr., if you're watching this streaming live, and yes, my parents, even though I'm 45, probably still treat me like I'm 12 in a school play or something watching these performances. But I can hear my father now, and he's saying to my mom, I've told him since he was a small child to always keep a handkerchief in his pocket. And so I know that if they're watching this, to see me sweating, they're like, I bet you he doesn't have a handkerchief. We've been telling him for 45 years. When will he get it through? So, Pop, sorry, I forgot today. Any other questions that you all have for us?
Commissioner Long.
Yes, and James, I want to thank you very much for the way in which you presented this contract. And you may have answered this question kind of, sort of, but I am referring to the chart that was on page 8.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if everybody.
Yeah, can we pull up, Julie, can we pull up slide 8 on that PowerPoint?
It was a little
Thank you.
disheartening and disappointing to see that PSTA is next to last as far as how we rank with our maintenance technicians. Is there a reason for that? Are we making it up somehow in our benefit package?
Well, they're in the out of the state of Florida. They're top 6 out of 31 agencies. So it's, I
Easiest
just,
way to
I just
top.
kind of chose the top-rated agencies in the state of Florida. So we're still up very much at the top, but if the technicians take advantage of that Ase Certification program, they can boost their salary. It'll put them in the top 3, right over Hart, just under Miami. So they can get up to 32.42 if they really take advantage of our Ase program. And hopefully they do.
And do you know whether or not they are?
A lot of them are. I know over half the shop, and what Henry says, that nearly 70% have at least started. So if they haven't completed all 8, they've at least gotten 1 or 2. Very, very rigorous program, a lot of studying. But I think as more and more of what's going to happen is more technicians are going to come by and share with what they're making, and hey, I got a boost, and I have this on my resume, and now I have other agencies trying to hire me. I think word of mouth hopefully will get out there, and it'll make other folks want to do the same thing.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Albritton?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that that was a great presentation, and it's always good to see when negotiations that both sides are successful. And my concern was the compression, and I liked how you took care of that with the 6-month step on there, so just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Brad, I think I turned you off. All right, is there anybody in the lobby or on the phone that would like to comment?
I don't see anybody in the lobby. If anybody is on the line to comment on the approval of the SEIU union contract, please state your name and address for the record. Okay, I don't hear anyone.
Okay. In that case, I will entertain a motion to approve the SEIU contract.
We
Oh,
have a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Yes, we have a second. Okay. If there are no further questions, please vote. Is that everybody?
Oh, wait,
No.
mine isn't coming up, but I'm a yes.
So we have 10. Okay, thank you. That is unanimous.
All right, thank you, board members. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. All right. Okay, and as James noted, right after the meeting, we'll go outside and take a picture, sign the agreement. Okay, now we're going to receive updates from TRAC and T-BARTA. There was no Forward Pinellas meeting in August, so we'll start with the TRAC chair, Duncan Kovar, followed by Commissioner Flowers. Is Duncan not, he's not in the room.
He's on Zoom.
Is he online?
Is he? Duncan, are you there?
Or not?
Maybe not.
Okay,
Okay. Maybe we
Okay.
go to T-Barta?
all right, Commissioner Flowers.
T-BARTA meeting, and believe it or not, we actually had a quorum for the first time in quite some time, so we were able to take care of some business. We did have an election of officers, so we do have a new chair, which is Cliff. We have a new vice chair, which is Catherine Starkey, and I'm serving as the secretary treasurer. The other item that we were able to take care of business-wise was, of course, we've been talking about the routes for BRT, transportation services, extending those services, and incorporating Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco County. There have been a lot of questions and concerns and deliberation. There were 4 models. The model that was selected was Model 8C, which also provides the service to extend into Pasco County. And that brought the price tag to about an additional $30 million or so. The concern was whether or not we wanted to do shoulder or do a dedicated lane, and it was determined that we would do a dedicated lane so that the bus traffic could move quite rapidly. So that's moving through the process. And then we had, of course, an overview of the budget proposal. T-BARTA is in the black. I know Commissioner Janet Long loves to hear that when she shared where T-BARTA has been before in the past relative to its financial status, but we're in the black, moving forward with a decent cushion, nothing that we want to venture into, but a decent cushion moving forward for the next fiscal year. So we approved the budget for the upcoming year. In addition, we had wonderful updates from our legislative representatives to talk about, again, the proposals that are out there related to the transportation package. So we know that that is all tied up in the proposals that are running through for the House right now in DC. The Senate has already voted and passed, but now we're waiting on the House. And we know that there are a couple of different groups that have their wishes and concerns. We are hopeful that they will come to an agreement and we can go ahead and have the transportation budget passed so that communities like ours could in fact receive some of the dollars that we are anticipating that will help us to continue to beef up our regional transportation systems and certainly move towards what we've all been wanting, which is taking more cars off of the road, utilizing public transportation, moving forward with clean energy. Last but not least, we continue to talk about resiliency, sustainability, and making sure that equity is all a part of any proposals that we are submitting, that we have on the table, whether it's the gondola project or any project, to make sure that we have those components interwoven so that it clearly puts us in line to receive those dollars. One of the caveats that I mentioned was we should look at equity, not just as it relates to providing the transportation services to some of the more underserved communities, but also look at equity when we're even talking about the human element of equity within the system. And so that was met with support in that we had not been doing that, but we think that that should be incorporated. So we had a really good meeting. Mayor Jane Castor even came, so we were happy about that. We were able to pass a revision to our bylaws as it relates to a quorum, because since we were having difficulty getting a quorum, we were able to make some changes to that so that we will be able to meet our quorum. There were 2 positions on T-BARTA that are supposed to be appointed by the governor that have remained vacant. And so it's kind of difficult to meet that quota, but now with our bylaw change, thanks to the attorney, Alan Zimmett and others, we were able to get that language together and make that change. So we were excited about that. And the last thing was certainly allowing the mayors to be able to appoint a person that could attend in their stead should they not be able to attend again, so that we could make sure we have a quorum at those meetings, and that was taken care of as well during that meeting. So I think we're good, and we will just continue to push forward, making sure that all of the communities throughout the region are included as we try to expand our transportation program, making transportation fluid for anyone that desires to take it. So.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, I see we have Duncan for a track committee report.
Thank you, and thanks for your patience for my technical problems. Madam Chair and the rest of the board, appreciate always the opportunity to address you. Our meeting was last night, literally, about 12 hours, 18 hours ago. Here's just a quick rundown of what we did. So much of it was COVID related. We'd hoped to have this be our first meeting there in your room, socially distanced, but we could not get a quorum. As you know, most of our riders are disadvantaged physically or economically, and so we are stuck still doing ours virtually into the future, next month and possibly another month. We don't know when we'll be able finally to see face to face. We really miss each other. What we did this month was the first thing, PSTA gave some recognition to one of our members, Michael Davenport. He's fairly new from Mid-County and has, as part of COVID, has been out there doing eyes and ears stuff. It's been wonderful to see how new members have each of us come to the board with different purposes, but he's been great about calling in things. What do you say? If you see it, say it, and has been helping so much, enough that we gave him recognition for it. And I'd like to pass that on to the board that Mike Davenport from Mid-County in terms of reporting and helping. The other thing we did was we added a new member, Robert Bowles, also from Mid-County. All of our terms are coming up at the end of the year. We've had some open seats, so it's great to see people during COVID putting their names in. We are going to need, and so I'll say it to the internet along with you, if you know folks that are riders that can serve, this is the time to be getting those names. We did find a rider in mid-year, Robert Bowles, to take one of our open seats. On your consent agenda, you'll see that we made some changes to the bylaws, again, related to COVID, about the Flamingo Fair, also to get the terms later. It's been my honor to serve 2 years, where normally I would have only served 1. I've been on the board 3 years, where my term would normally be 2, but we're pulling that all back out. I'll be term limited off this December. It's time to get new blood in. This part of our track committee is to always have new faces, and COVID is, we've got to move on. We've got to get back to normal. So you'll see those bylaws in your consent agenda today. We had a discussion about the seeking out new members every year in September, October from the track on the website. Our folks have a chance to sign up for the committee. We're going to put it out on our Facebook pages, get the word out. We're looking for new riders, for new faces to join track. That's what we're doing this time of year. We did get a presentation from Heather Sobush. You guys have probably seen the TDP, the transit plan. What a great year. I mean, it's very inspirational between the Sun Runner and the EVA and the bus on the shoulders and all of that. It was we had a great meeting, but life is coming back to normal. It's time for us to go. COVID, we've got to have a normal life again. Our next meeting is going to be a month from now, September 14th. It will be virtual, and I will still be in charge for a while. I got about 4 months in my term. Thanks, guys, for your patience. It's always good to talk to you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions for Duncan?
Oh.
Yes, Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question as far as getting the word out for track positions. Do we know if we advertise those on buses and at the transit centers as well? You talked about Facebook.
Yes, we do, yeah. That's one of the main ways we do advertise when we have vacancies. And it goes on kind of an annual cycle, as Duncan said, yeah.
Okay, and are the riders that take PSTA access now, do you know if we share any information through that channel as well?
We do, yes. We have a number. I think we have a designated position on the track committee for a PSA access rider, and I know we have now an increasing number of folks that are using that service that are on the track. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Cox. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Duncan, thank you so much for mentioning Michael Davenport. He has been throughout the years very active in our community in many ways, and he lives downtown and he rides very frequently. So I'm glad that he's participating and that you're recognizing that. Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have the consent agenda. We have approving the July minutes, benefits broker, facilities maintenance, repair and operations, and industrial supplies, track appointment, and track bylaws revisions. Do we have anything that needs to be pulled? Okay, we had a motion from Commissioner Peters, second from Commissioner Albritton. Okay. Okay. We don't need to. Yes. Thank you. Please vote. There we go. That is unanimous. Okay. Item 6A is exterior advertising revenue contract, Whitney Fox and Al Burns. This is to consider approving a new contract for exterior bus advertising contract. I understand the board's finance committee unanimously recommended this to us. Whitney Fox and Al Burns will make a presentation and also highlight an important change to the kinds of advertising we will allow. Whitney? There she is.
Good morning. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair Gerard and esteemed board members. My name is Whitney Fox, and I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for PSTA. And I'm here today to discuss our transit advertising contract. As mentioned, I will be joined by our CFO, Ms. Debbie Leas, and our highly motivated Procurement Director, Mr. Al Burns. If you could go ahead to the next slide, please. So we'd like to start this morning's presentation by discussing brand image and why it matters. Brand image is more than just a logo that identifies your service. It shows how put together you are. A polished brand image is necessary to show that you know how to run your business. Brand image is not just an unnecessary expense that adds no value. It is the associations consumers make based on every interaction they have with your service. I just want to repeat that. Every interaction they have with your service. So what would you say our consumers and the public have the most interaction with? Hands down, it's our buses. Now, as board members, I know for a fact, each and every one of you takes so much pride in your position here at PSTA, as do I. And we've heard you place importance on brand image on many services, like our PSTA access vehicles, for example. So when you see a PSTA bus drive by, does its appearance make you feel proud? Recently, while visiting Grand Central Station, I decided to take a few photos of the buses that came through, and here are a few snapshots of the ads we currently have on our vehicles. Next slide, please. So you'll notice here, these are examples 1 and 2 of full wrap ads. Next slide, please. A third example. Next slide. A fourth. Next slide. Number 5, next slide, and number 6. So I'm curious if you may have noticed a theme. And also, did you see any PSTA branding or PSTA logos whatsoever? Next slide, please. Another example I'd like to give is when we recently donated a vehicle to Reach St. P, a nonprofit, it almost looked like a Morgan & Morgan was donating the bus, which is great publicity for Morgan & Morgan, and we're so grateful that they advertise with us, but it really is a missed opportunity for PSTA. For all of these reasons and more, when preparing for our transit advertising RFP, we made it abundantly clear in the evaluation criteria and in our pre-proposal conference that diversification of our ads and a strategy to recruit local and small businesses was extremely important to PSTA. Additionally, we made the decision after reviewing the financial impacts to not allow any more full wrap buses that eliminate the PSTA brand on our vehicles. So here are some examples of other ads that will be permitted. Next slide, please. So these are smaller ads that we currently do and would like to continue with instead of doing the full bus wrap. So we're recommending a change to our advertising approach overall by not allowing full bus wrap advertisements and sticking to smaller ads so that it allows our PSTA brand to be seen and maintained. So our recommended vendor is Lamar Advertising, as they provided a very strong proposal financially, which I'll let Debbie speak to, as well as a specific strategy to be immersed in the local community. They mentioned joining our local chambers of commerce and being proactive in recruiting a diverse range of advertisers. Also worth mentioning is their intention to use several DBEs with their contract. So I'll go ahead and pass this over to Ms. Debbie Leas so she can speak to how this makes sense financially. Thank you so much. Take it away, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Over the time that I have been here, not only have our current board members, but former board members, staff, and most importantly, our public riders have hoped that we would eliminate the full bus wraps. And of course, I wanted to make sure we would not lose significant revenue from this contract. So it's a unique situation where I get to bring to you, number one, a non-grant revenue source and a cost savings measure all rolled up into one. So I'm proud to say that the recommended contract with Lamar will do just that. As you can see in the table, Lamar's proposal without the full wraps brings in nearly the same revenue to PSTA as the full wraps have over the last number of years. And the change in revenue is affordable to PSTA, and we have included in our fiscal 22 budget the adjustments related to this. In addition, we're saving approximately $25,000 or more annually, because when you take off the full bus wraps, it takes off all the decals that are underneath, and it costs quite a bit to put it all back together. So I believe that between the cost savings and the guaranteed minimum revenue, this is an excellent contract to move forward. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Al Burns to talk about the procurement.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Al Burns, your highly motivated procurement director. I'd like to go over the procurement considerations for this procurement. On June 23rd, we issued an RFP. It was issued in compliance with our PSTA policies and procedures. It was also posted in 2 places, on DemandStar and on our website. On July 26th, we received 3 proposals: Vector Media, Insight Street Media, and Lamar Transit LLC. On August 5th, we had an evaluation committee, and it met and ranked the proposals in the following order: Lamar Transit LLC, number 1, Vector Media, number 2, Insight Street Media, number 3. In your packets, as I explained at the Finance Committee, in your packets are the scores from the evaluation committee. However, there was one outlier in scores. So I had those scores removed, and these are the results of having those scores removed. We did a responsibility check for Lamar Transit LLC, and it was determined that they have the capacity to perform the work and are therefore eligible for award. I'd like to piggyback off of something that Ms. Fox said, that Lamar Advertising has also made a DBE commitment for an important piece of work, not just something that's arbitrary, for the actual installation of the bus wraps on our vehicles. The fiscal impact of this is September 2021, PSTA will receive monthly payments, and these monthly payments will be included in our operating budget. This morning, I've asked Lamar representatives to be with us on this and introduce themselves to you, Madam Chair, and board members. And with that, I'd like to introduce Casey Sexton, President and CEO of Lamar, and his team. Casey?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this meeting. Just a real point clarification. My boss, Sean Riley, is the CEO of Lamar, and he would be probably want me to make sure I stay in my lane. So I'm just only the president of Lamar Transit, for the record, but just I want to say that in good fun. But as I shared with the Finance Committee last week, we have found it to the PSTA's procurement staff professionalism has been a very positive representation of the PSTA. As Whitney mentioned, based on the pre-bid conference and the RFP solicitation, PSTA wanted a combination of revenue and diversity of the advertisers on their fleet. I personally flew down to the market on July 13th, and I noticed by going to Grand Central Station and driving the market that all the wraps were of one type of advertiser. Our aim in this solicitation was to provide both to the PSTA, and we have and what I mean by both is a diversity of advertisers as well as creating revenue for our partners. We have about 40 advertising partners across the United States, and close to home in Palm Beach County, we've had a partnership with Palm Beach County for over 20 years, and we focus on a variety of advertisers. Those would be financial services, banks and credit unions, healthcare, education, restaurants, real estate, and festivals, excuse me. Our plan, as if we were approved by PSTA as a partner, is to seek these type of different industries by immersing ourselves in the business community. We intend to be active in the Chamber of Commerce, Amplify Clearwater, Downtown Business Association, as well as other community events that come up throughout the year. We believe that our approach, alignment with the authority's values and goals, those of which to deliver a diversified advertising customer mix, revitalize the PSTA's brand image while providing meaningful revenue to the agency. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. Thank you, Al, for allowing me an opportunity to speak.
You're welcome, Casey. Madam Chair, I'd also like to mention that the initial proposal that was submitted by Lamar from a pricing perspective for option B was $3 million. In accordance with the solicitation exhibit B, I entered into negotiations or discussions with Lamar and was able to get an increase in the guaranteed revenue from $3 million to an additional $500,000 for the amount that's brought to you this morning. Recommendation is approve a 7-year contract for transit advertising with Lamar Transit LLC for a minimum guarantee of $3,500,000. Madam Chair, you have some public comment in regard to this action item. And I just want to tell you how grateful and appreciative I am of having the opportunity to speak to Vector Media last week. Now you'll hear from Vector Media, who came in second, and they also spoke at the Finance Committee. When it comes time for public comment, I can introduce them if you will. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we have any questions for right now? Okay, I think we're ready for the public comment then.
Okay. Once again, Madam Chair, I don't mean to be redundant, but I am very appreciative of being able to have the opportunity to meet with Vector Media. They are here for public comment, and they have four parties that wish to speak. Mr. Todd Pressman, consultant. Logan Mayer, Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships. Mark Brokowski, President and CEO. I got that right this time. And Mark Stempler, attorney. Now, Todd Pressman, if you're prepared to speak, it would be greatly appreciated. Todd?
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, board members, can you hear me?
Yes.
See me? Thank you. Madam Chair, board members, my name is Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South in St. Pete. I'm with Vector Media, your advertising vendor since 2015, and that RFP is being reviewed today. Vector was not chosen by your committee by a few points, and it's our opinion that the process had defective scoring and severe irregularities. Secondly, as mentioned, you're making a paradigm shift in reducing advertising revenue. Madam Chair and board members, in my 25 years of working with these type of issues, this is the most flawed and contaminated RFP I personally have ever seen. Quoting Mr. Al Burns, your Director of Procurement, the word negligent was used to characterize the scoring by Ms. Whitney Fox. Again, negligent. She was one of 4 members of the RFP Review and Scoring Committee. Ms. Burns also characterized Ms. Fox's scores as incorrect. But there's more. Ms. Fox clearly drove and pushed, in our opinion, her negligent bias on a second RFP recommendation member. That staff member is Mrs. Fox's direct subordinate, her direct inferior employee. So the second member would have had to oppose, clash, or dispute with her direct boss and supervisor. Madam Chair, board members, there's even more. And this is the proof in the pudding. The third member of the RFP committee was an independent industry person from outside PSTA. And guess what? His scores were the complete opposite of Ms. Fox, scoring 17 times higher, basically the reverse. So with Ms. Fox's, our opinion, predispositions, she then presented the RFP to the Finance Committee and to you today. Let's change gears a little bit. There was talk about the two revenue streams for bus advertising. The difference is $2 million. Your marketing staff is choosing partial, smaller ads, charging less prices that will somehow create a higher revenue stream. Amid your falling revenues, ridership down, cutting routes, gas tax off the table, spending your reserves, your marketing staff is bent on prioritizing marketing above revenues. Now, Vector has served you since 2015 with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bus ads. But with all due respect, if you're hoping today to achieve 100% transparency, be the best stewards of the taxpayers, to be the most objective above board without tarnish or questions, our ask, our hope, with all due respect, Madam Chairman and board members, is that we request the RFP be sent back to a committee level and must be reviewed and adjudged by independent persons. We stand by to answer any questions or concerns you may have. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Pressman? Yes, Commissioner Flowers.
This will be for Mr. Preston and or Mr. Burns, either one. Because I will tell you, when I looked at the budget, I was trying to have it make sense for me that a smaller ad space would generate more money. I know you extended it a year to 7 years, but I still can't see how the amount you would normally charge for a full wrap, which is pretty expensive, versus limiting that now to a very confined and smaller space, hoping to attract the same type of vendors, which are mostly attorneys. And I know Pinellas Technical College, I've seen them, our club advertises on the bus as well. So I did have a question that I was gonna save till later, but it's prudent now, on how those numbers would work. And then for your process, for any vendor who may refute the order of selection, and based on Mr. Preston's comment for the use of the word negligent, can you expound a little bit more on what the issue was related to the negligent comment, and if that was something that you've had an opportunity to address prior to today?
Thank you, Commissioner Flowers.
Hello, this is Mark Borzakowski, CEO of Vector Media. Would it be possible for me to answer these questions directly?
Commissioner Flowers, if I remember correctly, you directed those questions to me, Madam?
Yes, exactly. I'm addressing them to Mr. Burns, our staff, because he's in charge of the process. And then I'm allowing Mr.
Preston?
Thank you, Mr. Preston, because he's the one that made and I want to make sure I'm clear on what the allegation was. Or
everybody will get a chance to speak, so.
Yeah, thank you.
So can I speak now, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers, those are great questions. The first one that I would like to answer or attempt to answer is the one with, in regard to the revenue stream. In accordance with the solicitation, I elected to go with the firm that I deemed to be in the competitive range, and that was Lamar Transit Advertising. So I entered into what in procurement terms is called discussions. To you, that's called negotiations. When I entered into negotiations, I had the foresight, and my boss, Debbie Lee, has had the foresight to recognize that the $3 million that Lamar Transit offered was less than we were accustomed to doing or receiving. So in attempts in the negotiation process, I wanted to make sure that we at least, at a minimum, was able to garner the same amount of revenue that we had on the previous contract. If you look at, if I'm shooting from the hip, and I'm sure my staff is working diligently, but I believe that with the Vector Media contract that we have, even with the year extension, we received $3.6 million. So with this 7-year contract here, I wanted to make sure that I got as close to what we had already been receiving with the full bus route as the guaranteed minimum for the partial bus route or option B. And Debbie, I apologize, I wasn't successful at getting us to 3.6, but I came just shy with achieving the goal of $3.5 million. In regard to the procurement process, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of comments in regard to the procurement process. This morning, when I came to work here at PSTA, I went into my procurement conference room. And on my whiteboard, I put on there, department integrity and correct information. So I just wanted to let everyone know that Mr. Miller, our CEO, my boss, Debbie Leas, and the Finance Committee, we stand fast by the procurement process and we do not deviate. In accordance with Exhibit B, there's a lot of procurement language in there. And there's a term called competitive range. And with the table that's in your packet right now, there is over 100-point spread between number 1 and number 2. And I deemed Vector Media not to be within the competitive range. And that's why that enabled me, in accordance with the solicitation, to enter into discussions/negotiations. I hope I answered your questions. And if I didn't, I can expand.
That's okay. So here's what I'm trying to get at. How much is a full wrap? How much did a full wrap typically cost whomever was paying for it? Do you know that?
I don't know the answer to that right now,
Al?
but yes, sir.
I can try. So the procurement, as Al was describing, left it up to the proposers how much money, how much revenue from the sale of the different ads they were going to give to PSTA. I don't know. We don't have a knowledge of how much Lamar or Vector or any of them actually charge companies to put a wrap or an ad on the side of the bus. We just know how much we get as a share of that.
Okay.
You make a good point. Obviously, a larger advertisement sells for more than a smaller one, but I think what I heard from Al and others was that perhaps that Lamar is going to be charging different rates for the different size wraps or different size ads than previously.
Yeah, and that's where I'm trying to go at, because in order for a smaller route to generate the kind of increased revenue such that Lamar makes whatever it's looking to make and we get whatever you've negotiated, thank you so much for your hard work, that means that there's going to have to be an increase in frequency. Because there's no other way you could do it if you're going to decrease the size. If I was a business person and you charge me $5,000 for a full wrap, I'm not paying you $5,000 for a partial wrap or a bottom half. So that's why I was asking the question about how they intend to generate the revenue, because if they're not able to be successful, they're going to have to pay us one way or the other, but they're going to lose money, which, that's for them to handle, however they handle that, but that's for them to handle. So I was just trying to get a better understanding of how the intended vendor would be able to generate the revenue in order to pay us that revenue, not doing full wraps but partial wraps. Now let me say this, I support partial wraps, the bottoms of the buses and whatnot. I do support that, because you're right, as you drive along, and you see a whole side of a bus all around. But I do know on the inside of the bus, when people looking out, that's not what they're able to see and everything. And I know that when I served on PSTA before, one of the reasons we went to wrapping buses was to help generate revenue, an income stream for PSTA, and we put in place some very strict guidelines about what could be advertised on the bus and what not, because we didn't want to get involved in other people's fights and battles. So thank you for answering that question for me. I was not, I don't want anyone to think that I was saying that or not being supportive of anyone's character or integrity. It's just that when certain things are said or made, I like to kind of get some clarity on it, not just for me, but for everybody in the room and anybody who's watching, not leave certain things, hanging out there.
And I sincerely have an appreciation for that, Commissioner.
That was why I asked.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Flowers, did you have anything for Mr. Pressman?
I was asking, he made the comment about negligence, and I was trying to get some expounding information on how anything was considered to be negligent. But I believe in his description, when he discussed who actually served on the ranking committee and their relationships, professional relationships to one another, is the main issue and concern. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have some other people that want to
Yes,
do public comment.
yes, Madam Chair. Next is Logan Mayer, Senior Director of Strategic Partnership.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Madam Chair and board members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Logan Mayer, and I am here today to speak on behalf of Vector Media, located at 2810 Shear Drive in St. Petersburg. We have been PSCA's proud partner since 2015, and we are excited for the opportunity to continue the mutually beneficial relationship for another 7 years as the RFP neared. Unfortunately, our excitement turned to frustration as the process quickly showed itself to be tainted from the very start. In fact, just a moment ago, you were presented the exterior advertising contract recommendation by the same person that acted, to quote your own director of procurement, in a grossly negligent and improper manner. As a member of the evaluation committee, it was clear from the start that Whitney Fox was attempting to steer the entire evaluation process by gaming the scoring system to reward Lamar Transit with the advertising contract. We were utterly shocked and dismayed. After 6 years of a successful partnership without any notable complaint, we were given a score of 16 points out of a possible 300 by Ms. Fox. During public comments before the Finance Committee, we brought up these clear irregularities and were pleasantly surprised to hear Director of Procurement Al Burns concede that he also noticed what he called anomalies at the time, apparently leading him to strike not only her scores, but the scores that were changed by her subordinates, one of whom reports directly to Ms. Fox. Shortly after Mr. Burns publicly conceded that our suspicions were correct, Mr. Burns made a misleading claim about Vector Media's payments during COVID that was extremely prejudicial and can be easily refuted by documentary evidence. In a phone call the day after the Finance Committee hearing, Mr. Burns volunteered that he believed Ms. Fox's actions were grossly negligent and improper, and that he was so shocked by them that afterwards he got very emotional from a heated perspective. While we appreciated Mr. Burns taking the steps to try and remove the bias scores, it is impossible for him to rectify the taint that has occurred by this simple action. To the contrary, the influence of this biased evaluator continues to permeate the process as we sit here today. Ms. Fox took the lead in presenting the Evaluation Committee and CEO's recommendation to the Finance Committee, selectively deciding what information to include or omit. And again, Ms. Fox, despite having been deemed to act with gross negligence, once again took the lead in presenting another biased presentation to this board just a few minutes ago. How can a process be fair and impartial when it continues to be steered by a person who PSCA already admitted acted improperly and with gross negligence? We have formally submitted our protest to this RFP and look forward to the board reviewing these improprieties in further detail. Mr. Burns said that he takes pride in the honor and integrity by which he runs his procurement, and I sincerely believe him about his intention. Unfortunately, once this process became tainted, as it did here, there is no way to put the proverbial toothpaste back in the tube. As
Sir,
such,
you need to
if
wrap
the
up
goal
your comments,
to this procurement is to be truly fair and impartial, I believe that it's the PSCA's best interest to deny this motion and to reissue this RFP with a fair and entirely independent evaluation committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have someone else?
Yes, Madam Chair. You have Mark Borkowski, President and CEO of Vector Media.
Good morning. This is Mark Borkowski. I'm the CEO of Vector Media. I apologize for my overzealousness a moment ago, and I would like to reiterate that I'm not in the habit of protesting awards or making these sorts of public comments. And in fact, it's the first time I've ever felt the need to do this in over 15 years. So why am I coming forward now? And it's because this particular process was so egregious that I feel I have an obligation to my employees who may lose their jobs, to shareholders, and frankly, to the county to address a wrong. And very simply put, as you've heard, this process was tainted by one evaluator's attempt to steer the bid from the start. As you've heard on a call with Al Burns on August 12th, he admitted that this evaluator was grossly negligent, wrong, and improper. He told me that she was admonished for her actions and that he believed that her actions did influence other evaluators. And nevertheless, this evaluator continues to play a role in this. As Ms. Flowers asked a moment ago, how can you make the same amount of money from partial wraps? Well, the answer is you can't. And what this presentation that has been now presented to the Finance Committee and to this committee neglected to show is actually this would cost the PSTA nearly $2 million. They continue to show you the historical revenues against what we've actually offered to pay for the full wraps, which is $2 million more than what is currently looking to be accepted. Additionally, the presentation would lead you to believe that all of the buses are full wraps, when in actuality, and based on historical practice, 80% of the bus doesn't have full wraps on it. So I think this committee is being led to a false choice between revenue and branding and continues to be misled with information that just frankly, isn't possible, and we haven't had the opportunity to correct the record until now. And so given the acknowledged improprieties, we'd ask that you don't vote to affirm this recommendation, that you take remedial action, and that you look to restore the integrity of this selection on behalf of the PSTA. In the meantime, we'd be happy to continue forward on a month-to-month basis. I'm happy to answer any questions about the performance, what we bid, or the process itself. And I very much appreciate your time and listening to me.
Thank you.
The last speaker, Madam Chair, is Mark Stempler, attorney.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello? Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
Oh, great. Sorry. Madam Chair and board members, good morning. This is Mark Stempler. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Becker and Polyakoff, and I'm representing Vector regarding this procurement. I will be brief in my initial comments, but for the reasons articulated this morning by Vector's other representatives, and as more fully described in our formal written protest, there were significant problems with the evaluation process of this RFP. That gave Lamar an unfair competitive advantage over Vector and all other proposers, which is exactly what the competitive public procurement process strives to prevent. Under Florida law, the object of competitive procurement is to close all avenues to favoritism and fraud and ensure the sanctity of the competitive atmosphere. That did not occur here on multiple levels. In my experience, it is unusual for you to consider this award before a determination is made regarding the adjudication of our bid protest. In that protest, we asked for a stay of the protest until the protest is considered, and we asked for that again now. But rather than take up additional time, I just want to say that I will remain on the line and am available to address any questions that may arise and that I can answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, as I thanked Vector Media for meeting with me, I want to thank them for their comments. And Madam Chair, if with your permission, I would like to have an opportunity to put some of the public comment in proper context. And as you're aware, this was unanimously approved by the Finance Committee. But once again, I would like to have an opportunity.
Please, go ahead.
The first thing, board members, that I want to just correct, and I met with my staff that was on the phone with me during that, what I will call debriefing. I never said grossly negligent. What Ms. Fox did was wrong. What Ms. Fox did was wrong. But I never said that she was grossly negligent. And I just want to go on the record as saying that. I'd like to talk about the procurement process. When I identified an outlying score, I removed that outlier score to make sure to keep the integrity of the procurement process intact. If you look at the scores, pre-evaluation committee and post-evaluation committee, we still have the same ranking. Lamar, number 1, Vector, number 2, and Insight Street Media, number 3. Before the evaluation committee was even had. It is common practice, and I came from Indiana, where I was the director of procurement at Indigo. And in Indiana, you did not have the same type of public forum for your evaluation committee. And I am so appreciative being here in the great state of Florida that allows that, where everyone can see everything in the sunshine. Based on the scores, in accordance with Exhibit B, which is part of the solicitation, we are not required to enter into discussions or negotiations with everyone. I elected as the director of procurement, I entered into discussions with the number 1 ranked firm. I've read their protest letter, and I have several comments in regard to that, but I'm not going to go through all of it. I just want to applaud my procurement team and our CEO for allowing me to stand by the procurement process, and we didn't deviate from the procurement process. And I was asked that several times. Did you do what was in accordance with the procurement process? And I followed those to the letter. So, Madam Chair, once again, the action item that's before you is approve a 7-year contract for transit advertising with Lamar Transit LLC for a minimum guarantee of $3.5 million. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
I think Mr. Zimmett has something to say first. Can you advance him? There you go.
There he is. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some information for the board. First of all, your policy, which this board adopted for handling of bid protests, provides that the CEO, Mr. Miller, will render a decision on the protest that was received within 15 days of when it was received, which was yesterday. That's not a decision that comes to this board. Our process is that the CEO makes that determination. Under that policy, also, the procurement is not stayed. That's not to say that you don't have the discretion to put off a decision, but under the policy, there is no stay of the procurement. And this contract expires on September 1st. So that is why staff is proceeding and wanting the board to issue a decision today. With regard to the substance of the 2 complaints or the 2 issues that were raised in the protest, I wanted to address those. So the first one, the first arguments are based upon the scores of Ms. Fox. Mr. Burns did an assessment or analysis of the scores of the other members of the evaluation committee, both before the evaluation committee meeting and after. And in both cases, the winning score, Lamar got more points than Vector for the technical aspects of the RFP from all the other, when you combine the other members of the evaluation committee. So you exclude Ms. Fox's scores, whether before or after the evaluation committee meeting, Lamar wins on both counts. Their score was over, so let me step back. So with regard to the concerns about Ms. Fox's scores, in the law that governs bid protests and procurement process, when an issue is raised with regard to the procurement process, If it does not have an effect on the ultimate winning scores, then that is not an issue that the courts will reverse a decision on. So the fact that those scores from Ms. Fox would have skewed the ending scores is really not a legal issue, because either way, Lamar wins the ultimate scores. With her scores, without her scores, before or after the evaluation committee meeting. With regard to the issue of the fact that Mr. Burns entered into negotiations or discussion and a BAFO only with, and obtained only a BAFO from Lamar, the scores, when Mr. Burns analyzed them, after excluding Ms. Fox scores, the difference in scores were over 100 points. It was more than 10% difference. So with that, legally, he had the ability to determine that that Vector scores were not within the competitive range of Lamar's scores. Therefore, he, under the case law in Florida, had the right to only enter into discussions with Lamar to receive a best and final offer. The issue about the determination to go with option B, that was a decision that Mr. Miller made that does make a difference, obviously, in terms of revenue, because the offers that were received from Lamar and Vector differed, and that Vector did offer more money than Lamar on option A, which is the full wraps. Option B being the smaller signs. But that determination was made by Mr. Miller to go with, as I understand it, with option B. But obviously this board has the discretion to decide you want to go with option A. If you do go with option A, I don't know that there's been a tabulation of what the scores would be. If not, we would probably need Mr. Burns to do that tabulation and then come back to the board with regard to option, what the scores are for option A.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to.
Well, I have a couple of questions. How many people were on the evaluation committee?
There were four participants, Madam Chair. Three PSTA staff and one member from Orlando Links, who I might add currently has Vector Media as their advertising contractor.
Okay, not sure that's relevant, but so there was Whitney Fox and one of her subordinates and two other people.
Yes, ma'am.
And why did we ask for an option A and an option B? Did we know what we were looking for when we put it out, or what? I don't understand that.
I'd have to defer that to.
Because I think we've had an issue before with putting things in an RFP. You know, well,
So,
I'll come back to that. You know, I think it gets a little too broad, and then we ask for everything, and then we decide what we want. I think that's a problem. I'm just saying.
Yes, Madam.
so, Madam Chair, certainly your comments are valid, and it was a strong concern of mine, but I think it was, I applaud Mr. Burns and his procurement team for putting together a very nice RFP that I don't think we've gotten any complaints, or there was no problem with all of the proposal confusions. It was basically just, there has been a lot of complaints, a lot of comments by board members.
Oh, shoot.
And
I'm
so
sorry, I just cut you off.
Oh.
Sorry.
There's been a lot of comments by board members, by riders, by myself, to see if we could possibly do away with the full wraps, because they're a negative customer experience that we get a lot of complaints about. They mess up the buses when you take them off, and as I believe hurt our brand image. The goal was seeing, hey, could we make the same amount of money? Could we keep the revenue flowing but just not have those full reps? Was that possible? So it was a very simple, it was not like we were trying to confuse or look at different options. It was just, please give us two prices, A, B, with the full wraps, without the full wraps. And I think all of us were just open-minded. It doesn't matter to us, just to see if we could generate the same revenue, to bring that to the PSTA board, to see if you would support that. And thankfully, thanks to Lamar and to Al, we were. I was like, oh, okay, we're getting the same amount of money, we can keep the revenue flowing, and we don't have to have the big wraps. Great. That's how that worked. Every company submitted an A and a B, full wraps or not full wraps. I think that part went okay. It was then the rest of the evaluation process that maybe had some issues.
But Brad, I'd just like to add to that. I remember distinctly asking at the pre-proposal conference, we're bringing to you two pricing options. Does anyone on the call, and I'm asking for industry feedback, because I wanted to make sure that the industry was okay with what I was doing, and I got no problem, Al, we understand, it's not an issue. And I asked specifically of the industry, and I'm going from memory, but I do distinctly remember asking that. Is there a problem with having two different options on the table, A and B? And the answer that I was given was no.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Driscoll?
Thank you. One of the issues I have is that we don't really have a lot of information about what happened during the evaluation committee meeting. In the backup that we have here, it's very vague. I'm hearing, there's a lot of verbal information coming to us right now as far as this company, bid more than this one on option A than option B. I don't see any of that in front of me. Were there minutes taken for the evaluation committee meeting?
Yes.
Why wasn't that included in our backup here?
It hasn't been best practice that we include the evaluation committee meeting recordings or the pre-proposal recordings in the board packets. That hasn't been something we've done in the past.
Well, we had a situation where there were only 4 evaluation committee committee members. One of them is our Director of Marketing and Communications, and for some reason, her scores were thrown out.
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Because in my humble opinion, her scores were outliers.
Why?
She evaluated one firm with very high scores, like 99 out of 100, or I don't know exactly, Al probably does. And then she rated another firm like with 2 or 3. Her scores were very broad, 99, 2, which is atypical.
Did she offer any explanation for that?
She does not like big
that's
wraps. She does not like wraps.
And so Victor only offered full.
No, they didn't. They offered
Okay,
A and B.
then why?
Commissioner, if I could be so bold,
Yeah.
it is required that a person has written, documented why they scored, how they scored. And in our procurement files, we have the written record of why Ms. Fox scored the way that she scored.
Okay.
Point of order, Madam Chair, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Did you?
You're on.
Okay, good. It seems to me that the board is on the verge of getting way into the weeds on this procurement. And that has not been our policy, number one. And number two, if I listened as carefully as I thought I did to the advice of our attorney, this is not our role here to grill the procurement process as we have decided we want it to be. If I am wrong, please correct me, Mr. Attorney.
I don't know if I can say quite exactly you did. I mean, Mr. Miller is the one, per your policy, that will decide the bid protest issues. I think that's what you're getting at.
That's what I'm trying to, I didn't say it as articulately as you did, but then I don't have a law degree either, so thank you for correcting me. In any case, I would like to move the recommendation of the staff, Madam Chair, if that's the place that we were in. Thank you.
Do I hear a second? Okay, I don't hear a second right now. Were you finished?
I'll second.
No. Okay, thank you. No, just wait a minute.
I'm waiting.
Commissioner Driscoll, were you done with your comments? Or?
Thank you. This is, given that there are so many questions surrounding the process and the fact that this is a 7-year contract for a substantial amount of money for something that's very important to us, which is our marketing, our branding, and our revenue. And given the information that we have and the way that this process has taken place, I can't support it at this time. I'd like to see us, I'd like to see us do this in a way that we all know was very fair and accurately done. It's nothing against you, sir. It sounds like you did everything exactly the way that you're supposed to. But there are a lot of questions around here. This is really big, and it's too important to just wave through without answering a lot of these questions that are still out there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do think it's appropriate for us to talk about we're here to either approve this contract or not. So, Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Chair of the Finance Committee, we did have some of these questions to Mr. Burns, and Commissioner Schulman and Gao were with me at this meeting, and one of the big questions was about the skewed vote, and Commissioner Schulman in that meeting suggested that in the future we're provided with, like Commissioner Driscoll suggested, the tabulations of, so we can review those to make an intelligent decision on this. And Mr. Burns assured us that that would happen in the future. And then the next thing that we were looking for in this procurement was diversification of our branding image. And one of the questions I had are how many of our buses are personal injury attorney wrap buses? And I got the answer of, I believe it was 47 out of about 60 something. So it was trying to change that image as well. And the feeling was that with Lamar, that would be done efficiently. They've done it in the past. We would then have our identification on the bus as well. Now, wrap bus doesn't tell you if it's PSTA or who it belongs to, but one that's partially wrapped, you can also have your own branding, your PSTA logo, and so on and so forth. So for those reasons, and if Mr. Schulman or Mr. Gao have any comment, I'd like to hear it. But we went ahead and voted unanimously to move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Alberton.
Okay. So I've been sitting here listening to both sides, and then I'd say probably about 25 minutes ago, I was in the same position as Ms. Driscoll. I thought maybe we should do this again. It didn't seem kosher to me. It didn't seem like we had done it right. But, you know, I have a lot of faith in Al Burns and the staff, that they did everything they could do on the up and up. And it's a very simple question. I mean, as far as Brad Miller just posed it. Give us a proposal on a full wrap and a partial wrap. So just hearing both sides of it, I've kind of changed my thinking. And then, of course, General Counsel Emmett kind of helped me come over the top with it, so that's why I seconded it. I think that, from what I've heard, and we don't have all of the details in this board, but I do have faith in our staff that we do the right thing, and I think we have done it, and that's why I'll support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate this conversation. This mirrors a lot of what happened at the Finance Committee meeting. For me, this came down to three things: the process we used, the type of product we wanted, and ultimately the price we were going to receive back. So I think General Counsel Zimmett pointed out the fact that when we take out the score that was an outlier, we get the same ranking. So from a process standpoint, that speaks volumes to me. We're still there even if we take out that outlier. The second item is deciding as an institution, and Mr. Miller did this, whether we want a full wrap bus or we want smaller advertisements. For me, I agree with Mr. Miller. Smaller ads, while they may produce lower revenue per ad, it helps to diversify the potential advertisers. So we have smaller local businesses, and I mentioned this at the Finance Committee meeting, bringing those businesses in as advertisers also helps bring them in as customers and helps promote it to their own employees and to their customers. So it goes a long way outside of just producing ad revenue. That's what the whole point of branding is meant to bring the community along with our mission, not just our riders. And then finally, the item of price. It is my understanding that the Lamar partial ad revenue stream is greater than the Vector for the same product. So we can compare apples and oranges and say full wrap, not full wrap, and have a difference in price, or we compare apples and apples and we get Lamar being the better vendor. So those three items for me made it really clear that approving this would be the right way to go. I agree with Commissioner Long that we don't necessarily need to get into the weeds on the actual procurement process. That's why we have people to do that, and I appreciate the explanations from Mr. Burns. And I also appreciate the comments from Vector Media. I took almost a page and a half worth of notes while they were talking at the Finance Committee meeting. And each one of those points was refuted and acknowledged, and I appreciate the oversight of Mr. Burns on the process. That's what we expect him to do. And I fully also expect him to say, if this was not fixable within the means that he had, to say we're stopping and we're restarting. And so I'm very comfortable with where we are and the product that's going to be produced and the revenue that we're going to get from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was leaning towards supporting, but this is what turned me completely around. The comment that was made when it was shared that you had a rater to rate 99 and then a 2. I've served on a number of review committees, and the way that they're structured, when you answer the question, you either get the points or you don't. Sometimes it's somewhere in between. But from a 99 to a 2, that is too far extreme. But then the additional comment is what took me over the edge, which is why I'm gonna vote no. She doesn't like bus wraps. Then why was she on the review committee?
Thank you. Exactly.
She doesn't like bus wraps. Why was she on the committee? So Mr. Burns, wonderful job. Brad, nothing against you or staff or whatever. I kind of wish that maybe something had been done in the reverse. Come to the board and ask the board, how do you feel about going to half wraps instead of full wraps? Then the proposal, the request, would have simply been to advertise for partial wrap. That would have took out all of this. And then to make sure that people who are serving on our review committees, they can't interject their own personal bias in their ranking abilities, because it does not allow, in my opinion, for an impartial process, because your own bias is in there. So I was gonna lean, but now I'm a completely no, because you can't do a 99 and 2, that is crazy. But to put someone on a committee who does not support or does not like wraps, that for me changed my whole decision. So I'm gonna have to be a no vote on this. But again, nothing against Mr. Burns, you know, and I'm not going to I don't do the name calling and all that stuff and saying that people are running bad departments and all of that. I believe you did the best with the information that you had, and you were simply trying to advance PSTA into a new era. I believe that. I don't believe anything was amiss in your regard at all or in Brad's. But I'm going to have to be a no vote on that one because that, unfortunately, that person's actions for me tainted the process. The last thing I'll say is the only reason why we're getting into the weeds is because the comments were made, you know, in the public comment piece. And so we just want to ask, well, why was that said? But I do agree that, you know, we have a certain process we should follow and stay in our lane, if you will. But then when someone makes those comments, like I said, for me, I just want to make sure that if it's not accurate, the staff has a chance to address it and vice versa. So I'm going to have to be a no vote. I'm sorry.
Well, and I need to
Commissioner Flowers, I just want to make sure, and maybe I didn't articulate it, that outlier scores have been removed.
Yes, I understand that, but just to even.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
We're
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, and I think I had the same comments. If she was that adamant as the director of marketing about full reps, one, I don't understand why we would put something out asking for both options. Or B, why would we put her on the committee knowing that she's totally against full reps? And I'm not sure that that's appropriate in the first place.
Madam Chair,
Well, I'm just saying,
Yes, ma'am.
I think there's some issues process-wise, and I don't think it's inappropriate for us to question the process.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Chair.
So I'm going to be voting no too, but I think I'd like to see us start over. We may have the same, I mean, if we don't approve the contract, what happens? We end up starting over anyway, right?
I guess
If
so.
if you do not approve the contract,
Then you don't have a contract
I believe
for September.
Vector Media's CEO on the phone said that they would honor a month-to-month type of arrangement, and we would go out again, and as we did this time, we would follow the process to the letter.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure what our process says, but I'm not sure why we would have an even number of people on the committee in the first place. But
So that's a good question. Initially, we had 5.
Oh.
But if you may remember, the marketing manager, Ms. Alyssa Kostick, she left the agency, so then it was down to 4 people. That's how and normally it is best practice in procurement that you have an odd number of evaluation committee.
And
Can we move the question since we have a motion and a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. Is that what you were going to say?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Okay, can we have the voting thing, please?
Could you read, the motion was for approval, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, motion carries 6-4. I think that speaks to the fact that we need to look at our process, but motion carries. So, thank you. All right, next action item, state procurement, state advocacy contract with RSA Consulting. I understand the legislative committee recommended to continue with continue, right? We have them now.
Yes.
Right.
We did.
Okay.
It was unanimous on the legislative committee.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Peters, second from Commissioner Flowers. Is there any other comment, questions? All right, can we have the voting screen, please?
Good to see Ron Pierce briefly on the screen there.
Oh, hi, Ron.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members.
Thank you. We're happy to have you. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think we're discussed out today.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate the opportunity once again to be part of the PSA team. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Did we do the?
I saw
I
it.
didn't see it. Was that unanimous? Okay, thank you. All righty then.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Brad, do we want to update us on the reports in our packet?
Yes, in your packet, of course, is the, all of the statistics, the ridership statistics for the month of July. July was the first month in 15 months that we've been charging fares. And so it was a small dip of 3.5%. I thought it was gonna be more than that, but again, we are offering a promo for getting everyone onto the, transitioning to the Flamingo fare system, so that if you use a Flamingo card or the app, you get to ride, you don't have to pay until September 1st. So that's coming up in just about a week, where people are gonna have to load money onto their Flamingo card, and so we're preparing for that. That'll be a big day. Just to highlight a couple of things that are coming up. As Commissioner Albritton asks me every time I see him, including today, about the RAISE grant possibilities, hopefulness of, for the Clearwater Transit Center. We are trying to make a guarantee that that will happen. I don't know how to do that other than Ron and Harry Glenn and those guys helping us. But one idea we have is to have, we're having an event that you've all been invited to. I think several of our RSVP'd with the mayor and hopefully Congressman Christ. At the location for the Clearwater Transit Center on the 16th of September, and that will be sort of the ceremony where Clearwater, the city, which the city council has already approved, will donate the land for the transit center to PSTA officially. And so that'll be a great day. Hopefully you can join us for that. And then my goal on that is to somehow have some beautifully written media coverage of that event with a beautiful photo up into the hands of Secretary Peter Buttigieg, and he'd be like, wow, oh my gosh, everybody down there in Clearwater just really loves this. So that's the goal of that.
Right.
And then I don't think I have a date yet set, but I think we also in September will be an event where we officially donate that bus to the Reach St. Pete organization to make into a mobile food bank. And that's a project that's being led by our Leadership PSTA development class. So look on your calendars for an invite for that. And then last but not least, just a reminder that our next two meetings will be at 6 p.m., not in the morning, in September. 15th and 29th are the budget hearings, and then the 29th will also be our one meeting, our regular board meeting that'll just be at 6 o'clock. So thank you.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Do we have any other business to discuss? Any board members have any comments to make? Yes, Commissioner Flowers.
Brad, I had a young lady call me. She was trying to help a senior person get online with her Flamingo card and everything.
Okay.
And she went to one of the, I believe it's our Central Plaza bus circle location. The only way to activate the card, is that through online and you have to have an email? Because I have not gone on, so I don't know. But the issue with this lady, she was an older woman. She doesn't have an email. She doesn't have a computer at home. She doesn't have a cell phone or anything like this. Right. And so the young lady was trying to help her with hers to try to get her on. They ended up calling here and, tried to get some help. But again, even if they activated an email address for the senior citizen, she doesn't have, computer access or whatever. So is there another way? I'm just asking. I told her I didn't know, because I know when you're dealing with apps and when you're dealing with online services, many of them require an email address. We're running into the same thing with our rental assistance program. You know, you have to do it online. So, can you provide maybe just a little insight for me? And I did ask her to send me specifically this person's information so we could try to work with her as best we can. But she did make a very good point about other seniors that may have, you know, difficulty because they don't do this a lot. I was able to clarify the issue with her as it relates to the homeless persons because they have access for email addresses at Daystar, at St. Vincent de Paul, at the Dream Center. So we were able to get that cleared up. But the one regarding seniors and not having that email address to be able to connect to the Flamingo call.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I've gotten that question too when I've been out there. Not by, most people have email, but there's a handful that don't. I think two things. One, you do not need nobody needs a email address or to register it at all or do anything on a computer to use the Flamingo card. You can go to a transit center and get the card and then use it. Now you're risking, if you lose it, it's not registered, and so if you had any money on there, then you would lose it. I mean, the email address and the registering process is so that if you misplace your Flamingo card, you're still registered, and then any money that you had on that transfers to a new one.
Right.
But you don't need to do that. We don't really try to advertise that too much. And then I believe the staff is also doing kind of like what you described that Daystar and other people do, that I think we have maybe come up with a system that we can create an email address for a few people that are, I think we've been trying to do that too.
So they can just go to any one of those places, and when we start back charging, they can load up the card, if you will.
Yeah.
And then utilize the card, not
The customer
requiring-
service agent should be able to help them.
I
yeah.
think maybe if she was trying to register the card, that's where it was asking for the
Okay,
email
gotcha.
address. That may have been it. I will call them again, but I will also ask for the lady's information, the person that we're trying to help, and get that to staff so we can see about.
Yeah, if you get the person, we'll talk directly to them.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you so much, appreciate you.
Okay, anybody else? Not. Our next meeting, as Brad said, is the 15th and the 29th of September at 6 p.m. We are adjourned.
Please join us out front for a photo with the
yeah.
union.
Please join us out front. Right.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Look, I tried to be spiffy.
I hope Eric doesn't have. And
love the Flamingo
texted me too during the meeting that he's been, I guess.
Have a way that you can send that to the.
Here.
One.